Imagine for a moment you're a woman who's experienced the dizzying dance of connection. Those relationships where sparks flew, conversations flowed, and futures seemed to align effortlessly. Then, without warning, he retreats, leaving you stranded in a fog of confusion. You wonder what truly ignites a man's heart, what transforms fleeting attraction into soul-deep devotion. Many believe love is cultivated through effort, constant nurturing, unwavering attention. And while these gestures matter, they're not the roots of passion. Carl Jung, the pioneer of depth psychology, revealed a truth few grasp. Love begins not in the conscious realm, but in the shadowy depths of the unconscious. What stirs a man's soul isn't your actions or words. It's the invisible energy you emit when you stop performing, when you simply exist. Paradoxically, the less you cling to the need to be chosen, the more indelible your imprint becomes. This isn't mysticism, it's the alchemy of the human psyche. Jung called it archetypal projection, the phenomenon where someone doesn't fall for you, but for what you symbolize in their inner world. He may never articulate it, but there was a moment he glimpsed you and saw beyond the tangible. You became a mirror, a cipher, a reflection of something dormant within him. Have you ever felt someone's lingering attachment to you, even after silence or separation? Perhaps they returned months or years later, drawn not by logic but by an ache they couldn't name. That pull isn't about you, it's about the unresolved terrain within them. As Jung observed, we do not dream, we are dreamed. In those moments, you became the dream they couldn't shake, the unscripted echo of their own unmet potential. Here lies the great paradox. Men don't fall for what they comprehend. They fall for what eludes understanding, the uncontainable, the mysterious, the force that rattles their carefully constructed identity. When a woman anchors herself in unapologetic truth, refusing to shrink for fear of loss, her presence becomes magnetic. Not because she demands attention, but because her authenticity radiates a quiet revolution. Yet so many women abandon this power, contorting themselves into shapes they believe men desire. In doing so, they extinguish the very spark that captivated him. What you resist persists, Jung warned. When a woman stifles her essence, her energy dims, and the unconscious dialogue between souls fades to static. The haunting beauty of this dynamic is that he often doesn't recognize why she lingers in his mind, why her absence feels like a phantom limb, why her memory resurfaces in dreams or idle moments. It's because she embodied an archetype, a fragment of his psyche he hasn't yet claimed. She became the anima, the feminine essence within his unconscious, and in her reflection, he glimpsed his own uncharted depths. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes, Jung wrote. Her presence was an awakening, a call to confront the parts of himself he'd buried. But this kind of love isn't safe. It's transformative, demanding he shed old skins. Small wonder some men flee, not from her, but from the seismic shift her existence triggers. Consider this. Have you ever walked away from someone only to sense your departure left a deeper imprint than your presence ever could? That's the paradox of loving from wholeness. When a woman prioritizes her sovereignty over validation, she communicates a truth that reverberates in the masculine psyche. I am complete with or without you. To a man conditioned to equate love with control, this is both disorienting and electrifying. Jung believed the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and in her refusal to compromise, she models that privilege. Her quiet exit, no drama, no bargaining, becomes a silent revolution. It whispers, what's real cannot be negotiated. There's a quiet reckoning that follows when a man confronts the void she left behind. At first, he scrambles to fill it. Distractions, new romances, the numbing hum of busyness. But none of it quiets the echo. Jung understood this ache intimately. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. Her absence forced his shadow into the light. What he once dismissed as a fleeting heartache becomes a relentless teacher. He begins to see that his obsession wasn't about her, it was about the parts of himself she mirrored. His hunger for control, his fear of vulnerability, the child within him still begging to be seen. In the stillness, he starts to ask questions that terrify him. Why did her calm unnerve me? Why did her freedom feel like a threat? These aren't intellectual puzzles, they're excavations. Jung wrote, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Slowly he awakens. He realizes her autonomy didn't diminish him. It revealed the cages he'd built around his own soul. The woman who loved without clinging, who left without spite, becomes a living lesson in surrender. She didn't abandon him. She gifted him the chaos necessary for rebirth. This is where the alchemy begins. The man who once equated love with possession starts to unravel. He revisits memories not to romanticize her, but to decode the magnetism he felt. He discovers it wasn't her beauty or wit that haunted him. It was her wholeness. She moved through the world like a storm contained, unafraid to occupy space, unafraid to walk away. In her presence, he sensed a freedom he'd never allowed himself, and in her absence, he confronts the cost of his own emotional armoring. "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become," Jung declared. For the first time, he grasps the weight of those words. The journey inward is brutal. He grieves not just her, but the versions of himself he's buried. The tender boy, the dreamer, the man who believed love could be gentle. He starts to recognize patterns, how he'd chosen partners who validated his fragility rather than challenged it, how he'd mistaken dependency for intimacy. Her refusal to play that role, to shrink into neediness, left him untethered. Yet in that free fall, he finds an unexpected clarity. The love he once thought was lost becomes a compass, guiding him toward his own unmet potential. Here's the truth few admit. A woman's greatest power lies not in her ability to stay, but in her courage to leave. When she walks away from half-hearted love, she doesn't just reclaim her peace. She becomes a mirror, forcing him to stare into his own emptiness. Jung called this enantiodromia, the emergence of an unconscious opposite. Her departure triggers a seismic shift, a collapse of old paradigms. The man who once fled depth now craves it. The lover who hid behind bravado begins to kneel at the altar of his own vulnerability. And so the woman who left him becomes the woman who released him. Her memory no longer torments, it transforms. He stops idealizing her and starts honoring her, not as a saint, but as a catalyst. In quiet moments, he realizes she didn't awaken his love for her, she awakened his love for himself. The mornings he spends journaling, the nights he chooses solitude over distraction, these are acts of devotion to the parts of him she reflected. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, Jung wrote. Through her, he learns to try. Years may pass, he may love again, differently. But the mark remains. When he encounters another woman rooted in her truth, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't chase or retreat. He meets her gaze, steady. Because he now knows, the love that lasts isn't forged in desperation. It's built in the quiet spaces where two souls recognize each other's wholeness. Jung described this as the transcendent function, the union of opposites. The man who once sought completion in another now approaches love as a pilgrimage, not a rescue mission. To the woman reading this, your worth isn't measured by who stays or leaves. It's etched into the silent revolutions you ignite. When you choose yourself, when you walk away from love that demands your diminishment, you become an unwitting architect of transformation. You may never hear his epiphanies, never witness the man he grows into. But trust this, Energy cannot lie. The love you gave from your depths, the dignity you guarded, becomes an immortal thread in his story. The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong, Jung mused. You became the counterweight that steadied his swing, and to the man unearthing his truth, this isn't about her. It never was. It's about the life waiting on the other side of your fear. The woman who left didn't take your future. She returned you to your present. Every tear, every sleepless night, every unanswered why is a brick in the bridge back to yourself. Build it, walk it, and when you meet the next mirror, the next teacher, you'll recognize her, not as a ghost, but as a fellow traveler, Jung's final whisper. You are what you do, not what you say you'll do. So love fiercely, but never at the cost of your soul. Leave when you must. Stay only when it's sacred, and trust that in the grand tapestry of the unconscious, every thread matters, even the ones that unravel. For it's in the unraveling that we find our truest weave.